Good morning, everyone. I think we are allowing participants to log in. Give us about 20 seconds and I will start the session. Thank you.
Yes, Guru, we are live on Facebook as well. Can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, good morning once again to all the participants and wishing you all a happy new year 2021. This is our first of the webinar series that we are doing for this year in continuation with the webinars that we were doing last year. Firstly, let me introduce myself. I am Guru Prasad Bangle, the CTO at Solution Buggy. And I look after the technology front as well as the food related and food, chemical and pharma related projects at Solution Buggy. So having said that, so we all are anticipating for a very good session today with the kind of stalwarts that are there on the panel. The session for today is basically the key growth sectors and the government schemes that we can, expect in the food and beverage sector for 2021. And we expect that we'll be able to understand what are the kind of key sectors that are growing in the food and beverage sector, and also what are the kind of government aids and grants and the other schemes that we can look at. So I'll get into the session and introduce all the esteemed panelists that we have today, starting with Ms. Bhagyashree Matre. So Bhagyashree is basically a food technologist. Hello, Bhagyashree.
Hi everybody.
Yeah. So she is having about 14 plus years of experience in the food sector, ranging from R&D to new product development to production and the quality and procurement as well. She's got very good expertise in the food and beverage sector and also in ready to cook and ready to eat kind of food products. She has worked in terms of beverages. She has worked on juices, nectars, syrups, iced teas, non-alcoholic beers, then sparkling drinks, and a lot of immunity drinks. She's based out of Pune and has been a lead auditor on various food projects. The next is Mr. Dr. Chetan Nayak, who is of course from Nama Bengaluru, and he has done his undergrad and PG from Tumkur, and he's PhD from CSIR CFTRI Mysore. He's an associate professor currently at BMSC in the chemical engineering department. His expertise basically is into food engineering, water purification using the membrane processing, transport phenomena, and microfluidics. He has actually published more than 28 research papers and also had in the international and national journals, and received an international travel grant to Japan. Welcome, Dr. Chetan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Guru.
Next is Mr. Soumik Nath. He has about 25 years of experience in the FMCG, F&B, and also in engineering and packaging as well. And he is a pioneer in the automation of the food and beverage sector. He has, worked across, sectors such as Godrej Consumer Products, in Nichrome Packaging, and in Philips Automation, and a lot of other MNCs. Currently, he runs, an organization called the Machine Doctors, a very, apt name. So what they basically do is they are an engineering services company which is specifically focused in the food and beverage sector. So I welcome Mr. Soumik. I think Soumik, you're on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Then next is Miss Medha Gujarati. She's actually a founder member of a company called Catalyst Capital Advisory, based out of Mumbai. and has about 15 years of experience in project management as well as in consulting, especially in the subsidy and government scheme sector. So till date, she has completed about 10 agro clusters and cold chain projects, and also worked on 5 textile parks. She has experience in the investment banking sector, having worked for Bajaj Capital and Knight Frank, and has a specialization in private equity and venture capital from SDA Bocconi, based out of Italy, Milan. Welcome, Ms. Meda.
Yeah, thank you, Guru.
Yeah. I'm actually very eager to learn from such an, empaneled people on the panel. So I think we'll start with the questions that we are looking to answer. I would like to start with Ms. Bhagyashree. So,
Yep.
Bhagyashree, yeah. Since we are starting off the year 2021, most of the people coming on the platform want to understand what are the top 5 sectors in the F&B sector that they can kind of look at in case they want to set up something in 2021.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for the warm introduction and good morning to everybody. Okay, so as I'm working as a consultant since last 2 to 3 years, that is a full time, I must say, and my total experience is like 14 years from the food processing industry. But now I can see the trend is changing so fast. We could say in 2020 or 2021. As you have asked me, like the 5 most upcoming sectors or the growth sectors in the food industry, as per my experience, first of all is the beverages, non-alcoholic beverages, I must say, because whatever the inquiries we are receiving daily for the people are having different concepts in mind. Like as I said, non-alcoholic beers or energy drinks or some juices or nectars. Even people are looking for a sugar reduction, clean label products. People don't want to have any kind of a preservatives or artificial colors or flavors added into their drinks. And people also are looking for the higher content of the fruits, or we can say like a cold pressed juices, as a raw pressery has grown up so fast because people have accepted their concept. The cold pressed juices have full of nutrition, clean label products. They don't have anything added, not even a sugar. So this kind of a trend in the beverages people are looking for, and many new concepts are coming. Like we can say specifically in the beverages, like dairy free beverages. People don't want to have some milk added, sugar added, or anything added into their drinks. Second, we will come on second point in the dairy free beverages as well. So second thing is like plant based foods and beverages, or we can call them as a vegan food. We know everybody like meat industry or the non-veg industry is also has grown up in the last few years, like 5 to 10 years. But nowadays people have acknowledged the side effects or the disadvantages of having on our body as well as on the ecosystem. So people want to shift on the some plant-based meat, but as well, I mean, at the same time they want to test like your chicken and meat and all kind of products. And many of the companies are now coming up like a Good Jot or Weasley, or we can say Ahimsa Foods. So they have a very good options, very good product range in the plant-based meat. Whereas again, most of the companies are having gluten or soya protein as a protein source. Some people are also like gluten intolerant, or they don't like even soya protein, or like lactose intolerant. So even now in India, there are only 6 to 7 or 8 maximum brands they are selling plant-based food. So one of the newest company, we can say Imagine Lake, which is incorporated by Ritesh Deshmukh and Jamelia Deshmukh. So this is upcoming in the market. From Mumbai, they are based. Even we can say 60% average annual growth ever over past 5 years in purchasing or consuming of plant-based food. So this was all about a plant-based, but at the same time, people also want to go away from the dairy products or the dairy beverages. Like the options are like soya milk, almond milk, cashew milk, and so on. That this is not limited to this, because people are again looking for flavoring to this milk, like different flavors in the almond milk, as well as they don't want to add any kind of preservative. They don't want to use a plastic bottle or PP bottle as packaging, other primary packaging. Everybody is looking for a glass packaging as it is very safe for consumption. Maybe what happens, this kind of a product get a very low shelf life, or minimum like 20-21 days of a shelf life. So this again a challenge that people are looking to improve the shelf life of such products. We have got such projects, like you won't imagine, one client came and they said, we have developed some almond milk, almond cashew, it was a mixed dry fruit, and they wanted to give it a flavor of tiramisu flavor. That was very weird to hear. I said, "Ki, how come this idea came into your mind?" So there, one of the colleague was a chef, and he has developed, but they could not. Their beverage could not survive post 1 day in the refrigerator as well. So this was about the dairy-free beverages and all. The third thing I could say is the millet-based products. Yeah, everybody is going away for the gluten from the wheat. So people are shifting over jawar, bajra, ragi, even a rajgira kind of a thing. So millet-based products are also coming nowadays very fast, like millet-based breakfast cereals or some snacks. We can say evening snack kind of a thing. Then we have a breakfast cereal, which are again a millet-based, different combination of different millets. So that's also a growing sector in India right now. Then I could say one thing is like on-the-go healthy snacks. Yeah, if someone has seen the products of Snackable, so Snackable is selling online based products, and they have a very good range of on-the-go healthy snacks. All are again made with some millet and some other herbal powders or dehydrated vegetable powders and fruit powders. So on-the-go snacks, we could say like vacuum frying or the baked snacks. So people also don't want to eat something frying, which is like our regular banana chips or potato chips. So people are shifting over a vegetable chips like okra or spinach, or even coriander kind of a chip, even carrots and all. People want to consume healthy things like fruits and beverages from everything. They want to have something from outside, something packaged or something processed. But as well as consumers are getting nowadays very, very much aware about the labels. They are looking for the clean label products, less oil, less sugar, no gluten, no added protein, or non-GMO products, likewise.
Okay.
So one more category we can say is like convenience food. Like as you mentioned, ready to eat and ready to cook food. So ready to eat is always there, but ready to cook segment is also growing so fast. As we all know, both husband and wife are working and we don't get sufficient time for the cooking. So people are giving preferences to ready to cook things. So we have developed almost many products for 2 to 3 different companies in the last 2 years. They also have a different range of products, like from your regular bhuna masala, makhni gravy, from your pizza sauces, pasta sauces, and many more. The clients are coming up with very, very, innovative ideas sometimes. And as the post-COVID situation, we could say, like, everybody has seen the scenario, the situation, like everything can get closed, but the food business must, have to run. So everybody is like thinking we should also enter in the food processing industry, and they are coming up with some different ideas. Or some people might travel across the globe, like US or Canada, and they get some concepts from over there, and they are like pertaining these concepts to in India as well. So these are the basic, the five most growing sectors right now in 2021 we could see. So this is as per my experience as well. Yeah, we have not studied it like on the ground level. Yeah, but whatever the inquiries we received, whatever the projects we carried out, so this is the latest trend, I guess so.
Sure. So thanks. So I think we covered everything right from starting off with non-alcoholic beverages to soya protein to almond milk-based products and millet-based products, and finally the RTC products, RTC and RTE products. So that's quite a mouthful, I guess, at this point. Before I go to the next question, if anybody has any questions, I think you can share it on the question and answer window, or even on the chat window. Going forward, Mr. Soumik, I would, since Bhagyashree has given us, a list of, kind of the key sectors that we can get into. From your understanding of the, food and beverage sector, and with your experience over the last so many years, I would like to understand what is the kind of, automation that one can get into in the food and beverage sector, considering also that during the COVID phase, a lot of people faced a lot of labor shortage and issues with dealing with labor and things like that. So in that aspect, what is the kind of so if somebody is looking to set up a food and in the food and beverage sector, a small unit, so can he go for automation, and what kind of cost benefit analysis that he can look at?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Guru Prasad, for asking a very valid questions. And I think Bhagyashree set up the right tone that new emerging sunrise sectors in the food and beverage requires a new kind of thinking, and particularly after the pandemic season, and still it is going on, the thinking of mind has totally changed from the past situations. So primarily, for the automation point of view, before we go into a deep level of automation investment, we should understand three things: that at what level we are in the business. Are we just starting up? Are we just from the starting up phase, we are in a scale up phase, or are we running a MSME kind of situation? So the perspective totally changes based on what level one is, and the solution should not be a fit for all. So it's actually caters to three things that what in manufacturing lingo we call it holy trinity. That's the quality, productivity, and cost. These are very important. So in quality, mandatorily now what is coming too much is the traceability. That means whenever the products, whatever we are producing on the food or beverage, that batch has to be traceable, because ultimately we are dealing with very strict regulation and strict health requirements. So traceability of any kind of batch data and packaging data and post packaging informations are very important than before. That's people are more conscious about that. Connected with that is touch point reduction. So earlier you used to do whatever you used to touch, we just wear gloves and then try to do the packaging, and some way we could get away with that. But now it is naturally FSSAI and all are coming with the touch point reduction things. And then third in the quality part is the consistency. Whatever you are making, whatever you are producing has to be consistent level. You cannot have one consumer getting one kind of product and another consumer getting another kind of product. So traceability, touch point reduction, and consistency, these are the three part of the quality aspect which requires a focus on automation journey. Of course, as I told you, that that's the different level of automation will be required for different industries and different products. Second is the productivity. In productivity, of course, the consistency is also important here, because unless we get a consistent production, we do not get a consistent product. So that's so quality of machinery, quality of setting parameters, and those are very important for the ease of the once you set up a line or something like that, how easy to get into the production. So that's very much important to understand. Third is the scale. At what scale you are operating. So you are operating on a 10-ton basis, you are per day basis, or you are per 100-ton per basis, or 1,000-ton per basis. So productivity depends upon what scale you are operating. So that are the three parts of the productivity. On cost part, what is important are that not only focusing on the capex. Capex is important, no doubt. Capex, whatever the capital investment you should do is very important. But while deciding, we need to see what are the running cost, operating cost of the operation, what kind of power consumption will be required, whether there's a pneumatic compressor based operation or whether it's a electrical consumption. So that are very any touch point of conversion of energy loss, huge losses happens. So we have to be very careful about that kind of machine selection. Then in OPEX or in the running cost, there is a specification detailing is very critical at the CapEx procurement side. If you do not do a good user requirement specification or URS, you end up in very high level of cost of later, which you cannot put to back to the supplier of the machinery. And third part of the cost is the total cost of ownership. So total cost of ownership has been there a long time, but now new things what I am calling at a total value of ownership. So total cost of ownership includes the capex, opex, running cost, and spare cost, etc. But total value of ownership is something different, a little different in the sense that you buy a certain kind of machinery, you run that machine, you have an operating cost, but the quality and flexibility and the product what you get, the value you generate out of that has much more important for an industry. So even suppose 1 crore investment initially may look high compared to a 30-40 lakhs investment, and the total cost of ownership can remain also low with a lower consumption, with the lower thing, but the value it is generating, the amount of flexible product it can give, the amount of ramp up, ramp down it can give, the due to product market situation, that are very important to also monitor. So total value of ownership is very important. So I just touched on what are the automation criteria broadly has to be in detail, of course, will has to be worked out on individual case to case basis. Guru.
Yeah, thank you, Soumik. So what you are suggesting is look at the holy trinity of quality, production, and cost. Look at the key aspects of traceability and increase the productivity, and also look at how the cost can be factored, either the OPEX or the CAPEX. So this is very much in line with the kind of inquiries that we also get, because a lot of them, when they initially want to set up, they're like, can we just start off with batch processing and then look at the assembly line kind of a production, or some of them were already into batch production who want to get into assembly line kind of production. So that is where they have to make this trade-off between what really matters to them. But like how you said, with the stringent regulations, you have to over a period of time get into more and more on the automation side.
Here just want to add one thing, Guru Prasad, is if you are starting up, so it is important to start lean also. It's not that you do a very huge capex investment and then later on you repent that your business has pivoted to another kind of business and you cannot use those things. So you have to start lean, but plan heavy. So you do not invest it, but start the plan. Why plan heavy is very plan considering future thing is that later on it becomes very difficult to change unless. So one rule of thumb is that at least you should have a 50% empty space what you planned, because you can always end up in a situation where you need more space and you cannot suddenly create a more space, something like that. So there are a lot of things packaging things. A lot of people do ignore the initial stage, because they think that whatever can be manually packed can be machine packed. It is not that. Machine packed is totally different. So if at the initial stage you consider a packaging design part of a machine compliant design, so that happens in the later on you do not end up with a huge inventory loss when you just bring in a machine. So there are some things, and so it has now the part is that after if you're just starting, a food technologist will do, but if we're just more than a little starting and going a little ramp up phase, it is better to involve a machine technologist. Otherwise you will end up having a very manual kind of operation which is not scalable. So that's what I thought I should add.
Yes, perfect.
That's
perfect.
from my side. Yes.
Correct. The next question I would want to pick your brains, Dr. Chetan. You are obviously somebody who is, much more deeper into the food sector, because obviously you have done a lot of R&D and a lot of research papers that you have done. So somebody, when they immediate thought when it comes to their mind when I want to set up something in food is FMCG or food processing or dairy, meat processing and things like that. But there are a lot of B2B related food products also, which obviously during this pandemic situation you might have also seen that from your experience, which are upcoming, and there is a lot of demand for such food as well. So from your end, I would want to understand what are these kind of sectors if somebody wants to enter into in the coming years. What are the sectors that he can look at?
Thank you, Guru. I am looking in. People will be looking for more on starch-based, the pectin-based products, because these will be the accessories to the products for ready-to-eat products. So now, what I think in for the 5 things which will going to rule in 2021, maybe the one will be first, as I Soumik said where the food is coming from. We have to have a traceability. So people will look into from which place the food is coming from and how it is coming up and other aspects. Second thing, whether the food is really relishing us from the heart. That's not the second point. Third is do it yourself. So people are at home because of the lockdown, and still the software people are still getting an extension for another 6 more months till the vaccine comes out. So people will be looking at for a do-it-yourself or ready-to-eat kits, probably easy to cook kits. And as Bhagishri Madam said, it will be more on go green aspects than the go, because of the few days back the bird flu pandemic, and probably the poultry industry will be going to affect a lot due to this effect. And in the beverage sector, it will be drink it like it hot. So my guessing it will be more on tea, coffee, and soup industry, which will be going to be a very high growth. I mean, even the CAGR report says that the growth will be more than 8%, 4 to 8%. So it depends on 2021 how the food goes ahead. So especially the cornstarch industries probably will be helping us to take to the newer platform, where because hot beverages without milk or dairy products will be a huge challenge. People who doesn't know, who are and that is one point of my side. And people will be looking for these what do you call sugarless foods, wherein the diabetic or the healthier to improve the immunity based part. So the recent example for that is the Nandini started with the turmeric based beverage, and that was also very hugely turmeric and ginger based beverages. So that is also going to be very hit in the market. And probably people are more cautious after the pandemic, the health wise, what should be taken and what should not. So I think that will be the from my end, Guru.
Okay. Yeah. So what you're hinting at is more from a an immunity based kind of food that somebody can get into, and also from the B2B sector, you can look at something on cornstarch based products, which can be used as additives or as ingredients for other B2C kind of products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To add on, people will be looking for what do you call the in-house in-house build or the Atmanirbhar Bharat. People are looking for in India products more than the abroad products. This is what I take into.
Yeah. So obviously people have a lot of sentiments playing in, coming in, and things like that, wherein people want to look at locally produced brands as well. Yeah. So that is something which obviously our audience also would want to hear and would like to as a key takeaway, saying that there are key government schemes as well. So this actually opens up my next question to Ms. Medha. Obviously, she's been somebody who is working a lot with the government initiatives and the government schemes and all. So, Medha, what are the kind of key government initiatives that somebody who wants to set up an industry can look at in the 2021? And as a continuation of this same question, are there something which they can be specific at the women entrepreneurs and who are looking to enter the food sector?
Right. Thank you, Guru. Basically, food processing sector has been identified as one of the key sectors by the central government as well as various state governments. And government is putting a lot of thrust on development of food processing sector and food processing industries like that. And for that matter, government is assisting by way of providing capital subsidy and various fiscal incentives for food processing units. Now, one of the first, there are a couple of schemes, government schemes available depending on the type of unit you are setting, whether it's a micro unit, whether it's a SME unit. So there are different subsidy schemes available by different government bodies. So a few schemes I would like to mention here is, first is from Ministry of Food Processing Industries. There is a scheme by name Creation and Expansion. So under this scheme, the minimum project cost is 3 crores to 15 crores. And the subsidy available is 35% of the project cost with a maximum cap of 5 crores. So this is one of the schemes available from central government, that is Ministry of Food Processing Industries. And this kind of subsidy is available for units which are going to be set up in government approved mega food parks or government approved agro processing clusters. So if you are setting up unit in mega food park or agro processing cluster, then this particular scheme is applicable to you. You can anyways take benefit of this scheme. Then if the unit is at a micro level, say the project cost would be around say 1 to 5 crores, then there is a new scheme which is going to get launched under Atmanirbhar Bharat. The scheme has just initiated, not yet, the implementation has not yet started. The scheme is called as PMFME, that is Prime Minister Formalization of Micro Enterprises. So under this scheme, 10 lakhs subsidy is available or 30% of the project cost. The maximum limit is 10 lakhs. Now these two are central government schemes available for food processing units. There are a couple of state level benefits are also available for units, like for example, stamp duty exemption, power and water is available at very concessional rates. Then various other is state level GST exemption, then interest subvention. For women entrepreneurs, there are no specific schemes as such by the central government, but various state governments are taking initiatives. Like in Maharashtra, we have a special policy for women entrepreneurs. Under this policy, there is an allocation of industrial plots for women. There is a concessional rate of finance available for women. So, a couple of fiscal incentives are also available for women entrepreneurs as such. Besides, now, like I said, creation and expansion scheme of MOFPI, there is also income tax exemption available under ATIV. So under this ATIV Income Tax Act, the section ATIV, there is a 100% deduction from profits derived from food processing industries is allowed for a period of first 5 years. And for next 5 years, there is a 25% exemption is allowed. So there are many benefits are available, existing schemes as well as new schemes are getting announced under Atmanirbhar Bharat. Then under for food processing, there is a production link incentive scheme is also going to get announced. So, as a food processing entrepreneur, you can take advantage of various fiscal incentives as well as capital subsidies available from central government as well as state governments.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Medha. So what you're suggesting is, so if somebody even wants to enter at various levels, say somebody has 3 to 15 CR as a budget, or somebody who is going into 1 to 5 CR kind of a budget. So as per their budgets, they have different central level schemes, like how you said, 2 schemes, creation and expansion, and the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, which is yet to be announced. Yes. So that is something very encouraging, because a lot of them who come to us, obviously, they have some funds that they want to invest, but obviously they want some kind of government support and all. Right. And like how you said, every state government again has a lot of initiatives, which yes, obviously based on the state to state basis, we can have a look at it. Right? Yeah. Thank you, Medha.
Thank you.
So coming back to Bhagyashree, I think we have had a wonderful kind of first round of discussion. What I would want to know, Bhagyashree, is say obviously during this COVID phase there were a lot of issues that the F&B sector also faced in terms of raw material or in terms of logistics, supply chain, yes, management and things like that. So in your understanding, what are the issues that the sector is facing today?
Okay. So in this context, first of all, it's my pain that we don't consider agri or farming as a business model. So from there only the things get started. I mean, we are not organized in the farming itself. So it's always a complication in the agro processing sector. Whereas when we see about the other processed foods, like for the bakery or spices or the beverages or any other kind of a thing, I could see the food processing market or the sector is, I mean, moreover, is an unorganized sector. There are most many, like we could say 70-75% companies are unorganized. Maybe they are in Maharashtra or any other state. Whereas we could see the organized sectors or the biggest companies are very few that we everybody can count on the fingers itself. The second thing is, though the units are very small, they have a very small capacities, and there is a lack of mechanization. As we see, yeah, the packaging and other things are done manually. Even for the sauces or the ketchup kind of a thing, I have seen many products they do the packaging manually. I mean, they don't have any mechanization for the packaging or any other things like labeling kind of a thing. Second, for agro processing, we could say it is I mean, high seasonability and perishability is the main issue. So I mean, I know government is taking lots of steps or initiatives to avoid all this wastage, but still there is a lot of scope for avoiding this the wastage. I mean, the fresh fruits and vegetable wastage. When it comes to the R&D or new product development, the lack of awareness is there. People have budget when they come. They have a budget for everything, right from the social media marketing and the traditional marketing, plant setup, machinery, and everything. But they don't come up with a budget for R&D or new product development. So people are looking like, okay, okay, product development is very easy thing. We can do it, but we need a lot of money for the marketing and the social media marketing or any other thing. Like so, any newcomer or the startup is coming to the sector, so they should have a primary focus on the R&D. I must say, if your product is right, the product is having a good quality, then anyway we could find a way to market it or the sell it. Then for the startups, I could say the lack of funds is another issue. Though there are lots of government schemes are available, I know, I mean, when we go to the bank managers with our project proposals, there are lots of issue comes. So I could say Medha ma'am will put a good focus on this. What should we do and what should we avoid? Then I think lack of entrepreneurial traits or qualities or the training is also there, because everybody can think we can start something in the food processing, but food is not a very easy task. It's a very technical thing when people are eating it. So we could imagine, I mean, for the kids or for the elderly people, so it should be a very technically developed and produced and manufactured. But that training, there is a lack of training as per my knowledge. Then again, we have a lack of storage infrastructure, like for the raw material storage or the finished product storage, and the proper care or the proper precautions it doesn't take by the manufacturers or the warehouses or the godowns. Most of the people, even we could say like self-help groups and all, they even don't know about the FSSAI registration or the license, right? It starts from there itself. So it is very far away to go them for a food safety ISO 22000 or HACCP or GMP GHP certification. So the awareness needs to be created for this as well. So these are few things, including cold chain, supply and logistics. Because most of the products, yeah, can retain their nutritional qualities and everything in the freezing with the freezing technology. But most of the companies get afraid of the logistic and transportation part, how we are going to take care of these things, because it's very heavy on our pockets. So this is again a one thing as per my knowledge.
Right, right. So thank you, Balaji. Obviously, there are a host of issues that are plaguing the sector, and also it has kind of increased during the pandemic situation. But as we Indians are known for our jugaad culture and trying to overcome a lot of issues and still gain success. This opens up my next question to Mr. Soumik. You have been in this sector for so long. Obviously, there are a lot of success stories in the F&B sector. So, would you want to share with us a few success stories that you have come across?
Oh, of course, yes. I think there are a lot of areas which Bhagyashree ma'am has touched upon are regarding the R&D, NPD investment. So that area and the quality. Quality is also investing on right kind of quality instruments are also critical. Then third part, what she said about the packaging, manual packaging and all. So these are the area where there are primary focus has been missing from the startup point of view, which is at certain point was right. As you rightly said, Jugaad was an important factor, because if we don't do Jugaad, we don't have money or kind of technology available earlier to support that. So, but that thing has changed. Currently, government has Madam has said that things has changed. There are a lot of enabling entrepreneurial funds are getting available across the industry, food and particularly food becoming a priority sector is being given. So money is not a problem that much anymore. It's more of and then the technology. So whether it's the R&D technology, the traceability or the quality technology, or the manufacturing technology per se, there are a lot of things that happen. So there are instances of a thing like a spice product, like a spice, which is spice powder from a turmeric and things. These are the traditional things which can be like ground and then packed and then sealed, or say pickle. These are the products which are very, very traditional Indian things. But I am not talking about burgers or ketchups, which is already where big players are available and all. These are very Indian kind of a product. So there are a lot of success has been made by startups, MSMEs to get it to the consumers with a very good technology and consistency. So there are examples of that. ITC has been one of the company to 10 years or so, 15 years, and made a huge progress on the standardizing on different kind of food products, and they are now one of the leaders in the field of food industry. There are companies like Praveen Masala Ale in Pune or in Mother's Recipe. So these are the companies which long back started small, but now they have automated so much their systems. You cannot just imagine that whether they are Indian company or an MNC's company. For example, Hatsun Dairy or Chitale, their things are, Amul has been there in the dairy. But so these are a lot of success story are there. So, but at the same time, looking at the success stories are important. As discussing as pre-pandemic stage is something different, and post-pandemic stage is different. The fundamental shift has happened on the priority, what to give priority. So that is very much important. So as I already touched upon earlier, that always keep for the future 3 things in mind. One is that future scenario, you should be totally planned it out, otherwise you will struggle. That unless your future scenario and what kind of product packaging you're going to handle, what kind of flexibility are there, you need a qualified person to guide on that. So that's very important for that. And still operate at lean level. You cannot put your funds too early. You for the machinery and all, you have to see how much is needed. That much fund you should put, and you reserve for the fund at the right time. So that's the thing. And then third is that keep 50% more space available, just free. Space you cannot just manage. And even you are thinking that you are making it a co-maker space, but please understand that co-packer or co-maker person can be taking the industry orders at the same time like you. If the industry is growing, others also will put order on him. So suddenly he cannot ramp up whatever he might promise you. He cannot ramp up, give your extra production to you. So those are the things I think very important from the future point of view as well. So that's from my side.
Yeah, sure. So, like how the last few lines which you said, obviously, going for a co-packing and things like that, you will obviously have to look at his capacity also. I'll come back to that question, Mr. Somik, because there is somebody who wants to also know about it.
Okay.
Before that, coming back to Dr. Chetan, this is something close to my heart as well. Kind of being in Karnataka and being in Bangalore. What are the kind of opportunities that somebody in the food and beverages sector can look at specific to Karnataka, and if there are any kind of with the China India fallout and import substitution, is there any kind of products that come into your mind that can be specific to Karnataka?
As Somik sir said, people will look into the products which are more indigenous. Probably the pickle industry, that is one part. Where the problem with that is we are not aware of we lack with R&D of how it can increase the shelf life of it. People, so whatever Indian products we can have at least a 3 months part. People are looking for a higher shelf life. When you have the higher shelf life, probably the products get deteriorated and you will not get the same product level or the automated. Even when we automate, we will not be able to get the same flavor and taste at the probably after 6 months time. So that is what main intention part, as well as probably the soup industry, because the hot drinks will be the hot beverages and not that of the non-alcoholic. It is only the non-alcoholic beverages wherein we are looking for soups, tea, coffee. So these products with I think the recently the Chamraja industry has come up with the ginger based tea. Especially Chamraja is from the Uti Nilgiris background, and even MTR is coming out many other new products. Example, people are now a huge problem with this. Probably many might have heard of binge eating. People are now eating more than because they are at home. That is another part. So we'll need to look into what aspects people are based on, so that products will help us a lot. So especially the soup, coffee, tea industry, as well as the some industries which can enhance the product food shelf life. So that those products will really look into the next 2021. Guru.
Yeah. So what you're saying is Karnataka being a good coffee grower, and also in terms of some of the key products which go into the soups such as tomato and things like that. You are hinting that we can look at some of these beverages which are more indigenous and more localized kind of beverages, and also targeting the immunity sector.
Yes.
Perfect. I think coming back to you, Medha, obviously, you had hinted that many people, like how Bhagyashree had mentioned, they don't know what are the kind of certifications that they have to get into if they're getting into the food sector. So if you can, throw some light on the kind of certifications which are mandatorily required, and if somebody is getting into export also, is there something else that?
Correct. Now, for establishing a food processing industry, the first and the foremost certification required is FSSAI. It is Food Standards and Safety Authority of India. They issue this license of FSSAI, and there are two licenses available. One is a state-specific license if you are operating from one state, and if your business is operating from more than one state, then there is a central FSSAI license. And nowadays, FSSAI Act has become very strict, and various stringent regulations, imposed by the FSSAI Act because of the, we have heard of food adulteration. Then the milk which we drink has got aflatoxins, etc. So that is why after such incidences, government has made various stringent regulations under FSSAI Act. So if you wish to get into food processing industry, the first and the foremost thing for the license which you require is FSSAI license. Okay, apart from FSSAI license, if you are acting as an exporter, if you want to export your products to various countries, then there is an authority called as APIDA, Agriculture and Processed Food Products Development Authority. They issue these licenses for the exporters. So under APIDA license, you can also export your products to various countries. Okay. Besides, there are various pre-establishment and pre-operating license required for any food processing industry, like department from the fire department NOC, then NOC under pollution control, then Shop and Establishment Act, then labor registration, then various professional taxes registration like GST. If your various state governments are now giving benefits under state level GST exemptions, so for that GST registration, PAN registration, then there are various infrastructure licenses. Like if you are putting up a boiler, then for that also you need to take the specific permission of the state specific authority. Also, various approvals and approvals required from power department, water department, etc. For as you are going to avail the various benefits under power and water, so various approvals from these authorities is also required.
Right. So what you are hinting at is a few which are mandated by the central government and a few which are specific to those states.
State government.
Yeah, and obviously if anybody has any this one, then they can directly talk to us and then get the actual ground level requirement, which again varies based on the setup to setup.
Correct.
Right. So I think now we got a few more minutes, and I'll look at some of the questions that have come to us. So one question is, as a newcomer, I think it's by Miss Tina. As a newcomer, is it important to start with new products development, or can I go with co-packing with own recipes innovation? I would want Bhagyashree, would you be able to take this question?
Yes, definitely. As a newcomer, I think if you have a concept, you have an idea that you also have a recipe, but it's always necessary to go for R&D or product development, as it is rightly said that we need to extend the shelf life of the product. Most of the homemade or the traditional products are there. I mean, people are moving back to the traditional products. Or some other products that you have a recipe, but it is always necessary to go for R&D or the product development with a proper consultant, because you need to finalize the formulation, specification of the raw materials, whatever the raw materials you need to procure for that from which supplier. Then you need to finalize the proper process for this, the proper packaging, even the labeling, and as Ms. Medha rightly said that we need to mention all these things on the labels as well. So you need to design the label as well. So this all package, it includes in the kind of a thing new product development. Even if you have a co-packer with you, so because co-packer is also going to ask your recipe or your processes, because they are going to ask you your specifications for the raw materials as well as the finished product and in between the processes. So I think R&D and product development is must, even if you are going for the co-packing. I hope my answer is
Soumik, can you continue on that and see what kind of attributes I would have to look at to choose the right co-packer, because this is something which keeps coming to us. How do I choose the right person?
I think this is one of the most important question whoever has asked. Very valuable question. It's like any partner, choosing your business partner. Do not let us not consider any less than choosing your business partner than choosing your co-packer or co-maker. So primarily important thing is that trust. One part is very important when you're choosing any partner like a co-packer or co-maker. It's important that ultimately you are handing over your recipe to a certain level. So since you are handing over your recipe and your processes are in somebody's hands, you have to have utmost trust on it, which is possible. I am not saying that there are thousands of co-makers available all over India, and all the companies work with them because of this only factor that they don't share in one co-packer space facility. I see in Godrej we managed 20-30 co-packers, and in that same facilities Unilever used to produce, or same facility ITC used to produce, same facility Dabur used to produce, Himalaya produced, but the things are so kept in a separate way. It's not that it is difficult to do. But only thing, the person who is owning the facility has to have that kind of maturity and professionalism. That's the first part of it. Second part of choosing a co-packer and thing is that he should have a good knowledge of the product he is handling. It's not like that he has money, has set up, and you give it to him. Just do not fall for his ready space available and ready facility available, because ultimately facility can be created, but managing the facility requires knowledge and know-how. The technology, machine technology know-how, and also unless of course you are doing a very small initial part. If you are going for a very small thing, then it is better to manage on your own, then don't go for a co-packer. Third portion of course is the cost, because any co-packer will have his margin on his product. So considering the future chance of, we always underestimate space requirement, but overestimate our market growth requirement. It's traditionally, I'm not saying the always, but normally most of the cases we overestimate, because we are so love with our product, initial product. Once we develop, we overestimate our market growth, and then based on that we give a commitment to the co-maker or co-packer that this much of is the MOQ I'm going to give it to you. And when it doesn't materialize, then that lot of friction starts on that, the pressure starts building. So consider very conservatively on whatever you can commit to that. At the same time, you can always work for incremental MOQ level. So that's important. So I think these are the three things what you look mainly from co-packer's point of view.
Sure. So, I mean, that is more or less a human mentality, right? My product is the best, and obviously 1.3 billion Indians are going to, consume my product. But what you're saying is be optimistic, but be, also very practical in your approach when we go and choose the co-packer. So it is a win-win for both of them. One question for you, Medha, is, see, I don't know if you would be able to answer it right away, but something, is there any benefits that are available for tea packaging and marketing specific to the Indian sector?
Now, only for packaging, there are no benefit. There are no schemes available only for packaging as such. But if you are manufacturing or processing or doing some kind of value addition, then yes, you can apply under MOFPI scheme. And there might be specific schemes also available from tea boards. So that presently, I mean, I have to check if any other scheme is available for this tea packaging from tea boards. But if you're doing some kind of value addition or some kind of adding some flavors or processing tea leaves, etc., then you can definitely apply under MOFPI scheme of creation and expansion, which gives 35% of capital subsidy, 35% of the project cost with a maximum cap of 5 crores.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we've reached the back end of the session, and I guess we are well on time as well. So on a concluding note, I would want to thank all the esteemed panelists who have been on this session and taken time off from a busy schedule on a Friday, and tried to address the kind of concerns that somebody who wants to get into the food and beverage sector has always had. And food and beverage is something that everybody wants to enter into, like somebody who wants to get into manufacturing. But it is some sector where people think that we know everything, because obviously we see that food every day. We say हमें आटे के बारे में सब पता है, चक्की के बारे में सब पता है. So I am the best person to do it. But then there are various small and big pitfalls that people have to avoid. And also, in order to succeed, this is not something, like other niche segments where there are very few players. There are, host of players. So you obviously have to have your USP. That is what has emerged out of this session. So have your USP, have a product that, you can have, you have done the best R&D on it, and with the available resources, of course, and go into the market with a more of a optimistic outlook, but be practical when you are launching the product. Thank you once again for your time, the panelists as well as the participants. It has been a very engaging session, but obviously I have seen food and beverage is one sector where 1 hour is definitely not enough to clarify all the doubts and the kind of questions that keep coming up. Any other questions, please to shoot it to us, and we will pass it on to the right panelists. We have an excellent panel who is obviously wanting to help entrepreneurs in this sector, and obviously take up the projects in those sectors. Thank you once again, and thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.